Hello there, Itru here. Today's guide is going to be covering off the engineers. How can we get through the engineers and into the investors block efficiently and without causing too much trouble? The engineers are notorious as a sticking point for a lot of people in mid-game, as they cost a lot of money to upkeep. Their production buildings cost a lot of money, and they have some ever-increasing demands on their requirements, including electricity. So, first thing, we'll cover off the money. If you want to subsidize your income for a while, you can use a couple of little tricks, and there will be links in the description down below to my dedicated guides for each of them. The first one is covered in the early game tips and advice, and that is the soap trade, where you can utilize the excess soap you make and sell it to the Eli at the prison for $384 per ton. The next one will be covering off Archibald. And if you have a look here, Archibald is selling $8,000 for each of the pocket watches and $27,000 for the gramophones. And you can utilize trade price reduction books in your ships to decrease these values even more. And you can sell those directly to Katima for $13,000 for the pocket watches and $44,000 for the gramophones. And that is covered off in the trading price video. The last one is going to be covering the pirates, which you can utilize this on Jean and Anne. And this is covered in the Pirates Friends or Foe video. And you can sell beer for $1,040 per ton. So the next thing we'll be covering off is the electricity. Electricity is going to be one of the biggest problems for the engineers, as you require quite a lot of effort put into it and organizing it. However, if you are struggling on the amount of oil that you actually have available on an island, what you can do is utilize a trade union. Over here, we have a couple of oil refineries over here. And in here, we have a couple of items here. And they are all the ironwork and foundry books and items. This one in particular, you can buy from Archibald directly. And the other ones you can get through quests quite regularly. Now, the ironwork and foundry item boost actually affects the oil refineries. As you can see here, each of these items is actually boosting the actual extraction of the oil. So if you're struggling on oil, you can actually use the ironwork and foundry books to actually boost the actual extraction and start shipping it over with extra ships. It can help with all that oil shortage until you can push into the engineers, into the investors section. So let's actually have a look at the individual items that a engineer requires for their needs and their happiness, and what can we do for each of these while not actually going too far into the actual Scholars Tech tree and making items in the Research Institute. So the first one is the canned food. So if we bring up Control T and items, and if we look at the cannery, most of the production lines you can utilize a ferricin for extra production and workforce reduction and maintenance costs. And the ferrous you can buy from Eli or Isabel. If you find that Eli is not selling him when you are cycling items, check on Isabel. It tends to be that one is selling more than the other on each independent day. However, for the actual canneries themselves, while you're at Eli's, keep your eyes open for Chef Michael. Chef Michael will help with the canned food production, as he will get rid of the need for goulash and just replace the input with pigs, and you get sausages out as an extra. So that's going to be a huge time saving, space saving, and money saving as well. After that, if you want to keep your eyes open, and hopefully you will get one via the visitors pier, and that is Mrs. Mason, who will replace the input of iron for flour. Quite useful, however, you will be looking for Chef Michael as the priority. Next item, let's have a look. let's have a look at the fur coats. The fur coats, you're going to be getting the fur from your fur dealers, and you're going to also need to get in the cotton as well. However, if we have a look at the fur dealers, again, ferrous, as is an all-purpose item. However, you will be looking out for the costume designer. Costume designer will replace the input of cotton for wool. So you won't need any imports from the New World to make the fur coats. It also replaces the workers needed from artisans down to workers, which are easy to maintain. Now, if we're going to be looking at the hunting cabins as well, let's have a look at the hunting cabin. If we're getting the actual furs, you can utilize the forest density trick to have your fur dealers and hunting cabins in a much tighter circle, so you can actually get more productivity out of them. And you can also, if you really want, keep your eyes open for the expert hunter when you're at the prison as well. In a trade union, you'll be able to get wool from your hunting cabins, which is the other item needed for making the actual clothes. So you make the island self-sufficient on a one-stop shop making all of your fur coats. Next, we'll have a look at the sewing machine production line. So, sewing machines are a slow production item, and the buildings are quite large as well. So you want to maximize the most you can actually get out the sewing machine factory. So there's a couple of people we can utilize on here. However, as always, ferrous is always a all production item, fantastic to use. And the primary one you'll be looking out for on the prison is Dario. Dario will affect the sewing machine factory and the bicycle factory. We'll come back to him later. And he replaces the input of steel for iron. So that means you can literally just use the iron that you get from the mines and don't have to process it into steel, saving you coal, which is a big time saver, money saver, and just makes things a lot easier for yourself. Also, he'll be making pocket watches at a 1:8 ratio and the gramophones at a 1:8 ratio as well. Gramophones will be used for the investors. However, the pocket watches is something we'll be looking at later as well. So the last couple of items is the university, which is simply just placing the university on the island and have it in range of the engineers. And the coffee, which we'll cover last, and the light bulbs. So if we have a look at the light bulb factory, you are always going to be trying to utilize a ferrous again, as he is a general all-purpose production building boost. And the last person is the Science Whiz, which again can be bought from Eli. And the benefits on this one is the fact that you're going to be replacing the input of workforce on the light bulb factory, which is engineers, and actually using workers. You are also going to get filaments back as a byproduct at a 1:5 ratio, which means you need less filament factories, and they also utilize the engineers working force as well. So you are doubly reducing the amount of engineers needed for all the actual production buildings. So coffee is the last item. So on this one, we're going to have a quick look at our coffee production in the New World. So the first thing we need to do is actually get the coffee beans in. And the best way of doing the coffee beans for me personally is to have a big open field with a trade union in it and a bunch of coffee plantations all the way around it with tractors on the inside edge. So if we have a look at the trade union here, as you can see, we have a bunch of coffee plantations just in range of the trade union, and we have tractors on here which increase productivity by 50%, 200%, and reduce the working force by 50% and give extra coffee beans every third cycle as well. And then in the actual trade union, what you want to be ideally utilizing is the arborist, which increases productivity and reduces the number of modules needed to get to 100% productivity, but also gives tobacco, which is extremely useful. And then the last one is a Herman, the horticulturist, who increases productivity and decreases the number of modules as well, which will offset the increased modules from the tractors. Then in the third slot, ideally you can be using another production boosting item if you'd like. Ideally later on you want to be utilizing like the seed drill, which reduces the working force by 50% and increases productivity, or a miraculous plow, which decreases workforce and increases productivity. So now this is all zero workforce because of the tractors and the plow or seed drill. After that, you're going to need your coffee roasters up. So if we have a look at the coffee roasters items, the best person you want is obviously going to be Marco del Moca, but getting him is going to be extremely rare. If you can get him, make the use out of him, because you're going to get productivity and coffee beans back every second cycle. However, for items you can actually buy, Cecilia is fantastic, as she will increase productivity by 40% and give chocolate, which you're going to need for your investors later on. Ferris, which is always very useful. The coffee sommelier is extremely powerful. Increases productivity and reduces the working force by 50% and changes the actual working force. So you use half the amount of people and you're also using a lower tier of people as well. So now let's have a quick look at the happiness items that we need for the engineers. Keep them all happy and boost the income. Two of the items for the engineer's happiness is the variety theatre and the bank. And both of those, similar to the university, are just items or buildings you place down that are in range of the engineers and have a road connection, so they're quite simple to actually fix. The next one we'll have a look at is the rum. Now the rum you can be making in the New World. Alternatively, you can also make some in the Old World and the Cape as well, and we'll be utilizing the schnapps distilleries. There is a video that you can check on my guide called Insane Rum Production, and we'll be utilizing just one of these people in today. That is Sir Lewis Brinley, and you can buy him from Eli at the prison as well. And while you're making your schnapps, you'll be making rum every third cycle. And then later on, if you can get a Brother Hilarious and put him in there as well, now we're going to be increasing the amount of rum we're producing over here at 2 tons every third cycle. But with just Lewis Brinley, it's once every third cycle, but he does increase productivity by 100%, so you'll be going through that quite quickly. Next, we will have a look at pocket watches. Pocket watches are going to be a bit of a pain. However, if we have a look at the pocket watches, they only contribute 3 to the happiness, and they are contributing $43 to the actual income. So it's useful, but you don't have to worry about it too much, because if we remember Dario was the person that we were going to be utilizing in the sewing machine production line. Dario can also be used in the penny farthings as well. So if we have a look at the bicycle factory, again, we're going to be looking to use a Ferris, as he is an all-purpose production boosting item, and Dario, again, you use iron rather than the steel, so now you don't have to have the furnaces up and running, you don't need the coal, and he produces pocket watches as a byproduct. Now if we have him on the sewing machine and the bicycle factory, we're now getting pocket watches technically 1 every 4th cycle, and gramophones as well. And the 1 in 4 cycle is actually very useful. That is going to be more than enough to keep your engineers ticking over on all their happiness needs and all their production needs as well. Hopefully you find today's video useful and helping you to get past the engineers and into investors. If you did like the video, I do appreciate any subscriptions to the channel, any likes on the video, and comment down below if there's another video you'd like me to cover off next. Take care, and I'll catch you on the next one.